Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Struggle. I'm Jason Blackledge, here with
Jeff Monroe.
Jeff
You
Monroe.
got it?
Monroe. I love how he says not Monroe,
So professional.
Monroe.
Everybody says that. They're like, they say Monroe different than I say Monroe, and they're like, what? That's not how you say it. But anyway, I'm glad you tried to get my name right.
And then Lauren Hutchinson.
I'm
again.
Lauren.
Yeah,
Yes,
Lauren.
I am.
Do you
Lauren.
pronounce your last name differently, or
No, just Lauren Hutchinson.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming to another episode with us. So we were talking about. I have been asking to do an episode like this, and Jeff finally agreed
Yeah.
to talk about rock bottom.
Yeah. Well, I think we kind of hit on it, and the guests kind of hit on it a little bit, but you know, the definition of rock bottom is different for everybody.
Yeah,
Right.
sure.
And I was telling you on the ride over, I was somewhere last night, and we were talking about that, and just, you know, I hear people talking about their rock bottoms and like the definition of what that is and how they see themselves and how they reach that. You know, I thought that I hit rock bottom several times,
for
but there
sure.
was always further and
Yeah.
further down you could go. Like, you know, like we were talking earlier, you know, living under a bridge, living under my car, under my car.
Sometimes.
And you were telling us about
Sometimes.
what cities had the nicest
Yeah.
bridges. By the way, he was.
Where do we need to go to live under a
Was
bridge?
it Austin?
Austin has some
Austin.
Not
pretty good
Monroe.
We
It's,
should take a vacay.
But it's like it was always further to go and further bottom to hit, you know. And for me, looking at what my rock bottom was, or let me take it back a little bit. What I used to define my rock bottom was by other people, right? And if I haven't reached as far down as they've gone, then I hadn't hit rock bottom, right?
Right.
And so I was always trying to drive further and further down. Either one, to have a good story when I go into treatment, so people will look at me like, "Oh yeah, he's messed up.
He's
He
one of
he
us."
needs to be here," right?
Yeah.
Instead of looking at other people's rock bottoms and saying, "Well, I don't need to be here because I'm not as far down as that," you know. Because when I look at my final days in addiction, my rock bottom consisted of not being able to distinguish reality, you know, and thinking that I was smarter than this illness and smarter than this disease.
Yeah.
That of course it can't get me, you know, but going into this massive amount of paranoia and not being able to get out of it, and not in my brain not be able to comprehend what was going on, and thinking everybody was out to get me and all that was like my bottom, you know. And I think everybody reaches a different bottom in order to get to where they came from,
Right.
you know. And that's kind of what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
You know, because I think it's important for people to see that and say, hey, I'm in a place in my life where, you know, I need help, and I don't have to look at somebody else and saying, I don't need help until I get to that point.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think it's important for us to talk about.
Yeah, I think also, you know, you talked about it a little bit on the last episode, but it's like when I'm at that lowest point, you don't, I can't see anything. That's not possible. So
That
talking,
hopelessness.
yeah, talking about at one point being there was the hope I needed. When people were saying, like, at one point I was like, here's the stuff I did, and I'm not there anymore.
Yeah.
You know, because when you're kind of stuck in it, like, it's real difficult to see a way out of it, you know, to see hope, like you were talking about.
I think a lot of times too, like, I think I reached my bottom a couple times, you know, and each time it got worse and worse. Like, you know, I'll never use IV drugs. I'll never smoke crack. I'll never put drugs above my kid. I'll never be homeless. You know, we say all those things. And when we don't get sober at that point, we usually do all those things. And that's what I experienced. I did all those things that I said that I would never do, you
And
know.
in reality, they just had not happened yet.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
it did.
I think a lot of people suffer with that. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm not as bad as him. I'm not as bad as her, this and that. And it's like, or I just haven't been doing, I haven't done it yet. I haven't done
Well,
it
Right.
long enough.
yeah, and I think it's almost human nature to compare ourselves to others, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially in active addiction, that's what
Mm-hmm.
we do. And we're saying as long as I'm not as bad as that person, but the other people behind us are saying as long as I'm not as bad as
Right.
Jeff or Lauren or Jason, then I can
Then I'm
keep
good.
going, right?
Yeah.
So I like how you said, like, I think I hit my rock bottom a couple of times. Rock bottom means the only place you can go is up, right?
Mhm.
Well, for us in some of these situations, there was always further to fall until we absolutely hit our rock bottom.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And where is that? What is that definition for you?
For me, it was just I was willing to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
Before all these other rock bottoms that we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about that I had experienced, I wasn't really willing to do anything different.
Mm-hmm.
I stayed the same. I didn't do what treatment centers or 12-step programs told me to do. Nothing changed, and it goes with that saying, if nothing changes, nothing changes. Um, for me, when I finally hit that last rock bottom, it was me going, okay, what do I need to do now? And seeking that help and being willing to change. I had never been willing to change before.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you land your behind in prison, you're wanting to do something a little different. At least for me, they called me Hannah Montana when I was in prison. That
Yeah.
was not cool. I was 100 pounds soaking wet. I went into prison in a swimsuit cover up.
Mm-hmm.
And the poor guy that arrested me had to put his T-shirt over me just so I could walk into the jail and didn't get harassed walking through.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, I landed myself in there and I looked around and I remember looking around at all these women going, holy crap, I fit in.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing different about me than the person that killed her boyfriend laying next to me. There was nothing different about us. We acted the same. We talked the same. Our stories were similar, except I didn't kill anybody. Slightly
Slight
different.
difference, yeah.
Slightly different. But
Allegedly.
allegedly she killed someone. But yeah, that scared me.
Yeah.
Looking around, going, holy cow! Like I could survive in this.
Yeah.
And it shook me to my core.
It's not abnormal anymore. All this
No.
crazy, like that's when you're just kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
like going to jail, doing these things, living
Yeah.
under a bridge. Like when
Yeah.
these things aren't, when they start to become
Your everyday life.
normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just something that you do.
Yeah,
What are you
absolutely.
doing today? I'm going to the bathroom in that bush, like that's cool or something. Or that shouldn't bother you.
Yeah.
And then when I was in there, it was like I was bothered by a lot of things that went on in there. I was offered different substances multiple times. And I honestly couldn't explain to you why I didn't use.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah.
I just didn't. And, when I went to my court date, the judge was up there reading this long list of things that I'm about to be convicted for. And it was like I just screamed, I'm guilty.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm guilty. I'm guilty. I'm guilty. I'm done. What do I need to do?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, she released me that day, and I was like, well, hell.
I know.
Said
It's
this.
like,
Wow.
yeah, it's we say this too, sick and tired of being sick and tired, right?
Yeah.
And like that's those points where you only want the truth to come out,
Yeah.
right? You're
Absolutely.
so done. Is like the only thing that is all the lies are done. The only thing that is left is the truth, and you want it to come out so bad because you're tired of hiding it.
I was
Right,
I was
and
so sick
I think
of
that's
myself.
part of the
so sick of
yeah,
myself.
part of the rock bottom that I saw the most in this last time is going to the family with this ridiculous amount of paranoia, but but being okay and saying, hey, I need help, and I want it all to be out there, right?
Mhm.
And I want all the truth to come out there. I'm done with the lies, and I just need to be somewhere safe,
Mhm.
you know, for me. Like, and it's crazy to think that safety meant going to treatment
Mhm.
and like being behind some closed doors. And, you know, part of me is like, okay, I'm escaping all these people that I'm think doing all this stuff to me. But the other part is I'm in a place that I truly believe that I'm going to get some help at, or
Mhm.
wanting it, you know,
Mhm.
truly wanting it that last time.
Well, and I didn't know that she was going to release me that day.
Yeah.
I didn't. I fully thought that I was going to be there for a long time,
hmm
but at that point, it was like, here it is. This is what I've done. I'm guilty. I'll take the charges. I'll do whatever you tell me to do. And there was some freedom in that, but I didn't know she was going to let me go. I
Yeah.
fully thought that I was going to be for a really
Yeah.
long time, but I was ready to take those consequences.
Yeah.
I was ready to just say, enough's enough,
hmm
you know. And when I finally did, like I mentioned before, it was just this freedom in it. It was like, okay, now I know what I have to do, and let's go do it.
Yeah. I
You know.
think that's part of the, you know, that being thoroughly convinced that, look, no matter what, this is what I got to do, right? And I know if I drink, if I go like if I use in jail, whatever, my consequences are going to continue to follow me,
Mhm.
right? Um, I just, you know, it amazes me that it takes what it takes,
Mhm.
right? And I'm sitting here listening to us, and it just kind of hits me of like, you know, I remember being thinking what was my rock bottom at one time, and it just hit me. I had a friend from Austin, okay, what led me under a bridge and everything like that.
The nice bridge.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the nice bridge, and like she is having brain surgery. Okay, she's having to have brain surgery, and I'm living with her in Austin, and her mom and her daughter, and you know, I'm living with the
And they're
family.
taking care
I
of
did,
me.
yeah. They're taking care of me,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and she's going into the hospital to have brain surgery, and she's on. You could imagine a lot of opiates at the time, right?
Right.
And so my only thought is of myself and how I could get high, right?
Mhm.
Off of her medications.
Mhm.
And like I'm watching her in the hospital just, you know, drooling. They got her on all kind of medications. And my first thought is like, man, I sure would like to be feeling like she's
Yeah.
feeling,
Mhm.
right? And so they're pumping her full of like these liquid opiates, you know, and so the one thing that I do is, you know, they're putting a dispenser, put them in the dispensers, and I go and put my hand down in a biohazard container, trying to get the liquid syringes. Maybe there's a little bit left, right? And so I get caught with my hand in the cookie jar, as you would
Or in the
you think, right?
in the
So
biohazard.
you do know that you can't pull it.
Pull it out. Yeah, that's lovely.
So, you know, we have the doctor come in, the mom come in, and here I am on a chair because it's quite higher and I'm vertically challenged, you know, and I'm up there, they're coming in, and I'm trying to get, you know, these liquid and so, right, that is a bottom and that is a low, right?
That is
And
embarrassing.
that is embarrassing, a low. And so you can imagine, like, you can't stay here anymore.
Yeah.
I
Please
didn't
don't
have a
ever
vehicle,
come
and they,
back.
yeah.
Please don't ever come
I've
And
back.
been
so
told
they
that.
put me out in Austin with no vehicle and nowhere to go. Like I say, they put me out. I put myself out, right?
Sure.
You know, and you know, I go and I stay in under a bridge, and you know, I'm having to call dad and do all these things. Like, oh, I need help. I'm ready to get.
Right.
I'm ready
Now
to
I'm
get
ready.
help. Now I'm ready to
Yeah.
get.
Now I'm ready.
But that still wasn't
Still
my
wasn't enough.
bottom. I
Right.
still had a few years to reach my true bottom.
Mhm.
You
I
know, and God rest her soul. You know, the girl there, she didn't.
But
make
that's the
that.
way we think.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
yeah, you're telling that story, man. I have a story, similar, and I think about that when we talk about this all the time
Mhm.
because today, I certainly understand it. I lived it. I was there. But like looking back, it's one of those things where you talk about like
Mhm.
delusion, right? Like insanity. We use all these other words, but I had been I had been sober for 7 or 8 months. Woke up one morning. I was working at this place. I was the only person there that day, and I had this great idea that I'm gonna do it one time while I'm painting,
Just once.
just one time. It'd been 7 or 8 months, so I go throughout the entire process of what that it's driving here. Well, first get in touch. I gotta this, I gotta that, do all that stuff, and I overdosed
Mm-hmm.
in a bathroom in a home where no one else was.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter was born that day.
Yeah.
My daughter was born, and the only reason anybody came to find me is because no one could get in touch with me.
Mm.
And so they found me in a bathroom,
Mm-hmm.
and I had an ambulance take me to the same hospital that my
Mm-hmm.
youngest daughter was at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and I tell that story now, and I think about that, like when you were
Yeah.
just saying, like, and it still wasn't enough to
Mhm.
think that that was not
Mhm.
enough.
Right.
And I look at pictures now of like,
Yeah.
I left my room from an overdose to go see,
Yeah.
and it's like, and it's still, like you said, man, it still was not,
Yeah.
it still was not enough for me to say, I got to change. I
Right.
got to do something different. I
Right.
got to,
I think there's a part of us, right, when we haven't truly hit our bottom, there's still a small part of us that still says, I have hope to continue doing what I'm doing,
Yeah.
right? That I can control this illness, that I can manage what I'm doing. We hold out that little hope
Mhm.
until we don't. And I gotta tell you, a lot of times with people like us, right, is these devastating things we're talking about, these situations that we get in where most people would say, God, that should have been your rock bottom. It's the areas that are less like what's the word I'm looking for? Um severe that shows where we hit our bottoms, It's when we've lost all hope,
yeah.
Mhm.
right? Like you were talking about, I was just ready to be done. I'm ready to get all the lies out. Like I have no hope no more. But
Mhm.
I think the great thing about truly hitting your rock bottom is, the only place to go is up.
Yeah.
From that point, there is hope because you see it in people like us talking about these stories that we have and all these things that's happened, and like, to be where you're at in the position you're at with Woodlake, and Jason, you too, and start where you start and been where you've been, man, that's the experience, our experience, and then that's the hope in it, right?
Mhm.
You were telling us on the way, your rock bottom was in this neighborhood.
Yeah, it was. Right
it's-
down the road.
right down the road. So
And I didn't run the stop
you,
sign.
you went down memory lane, like truly down memory
Yeah.
lane.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah, figuratively. And, I think, and look, thank goodness you talked about it in the last episode. I had similar experiences with Woodlake where it was like, get out and don't come back. kind of
Yeah.
thing. But, it was like just one of those things where it was like, obviously they never said no.
Mhm.
No,
But-
never.
But being in that position, it's like, I know for myself, the final time, right? I was to the point where I was either going to do everything suggested
Mhm.
or like not being alive anymore started to look
Mhm.
really,
Yeah.
really like, and I knew that it was going to have to be something I
Yeah.
did intentionally. Like, I hate to
Mhm.
say that, but that was where I was. I needed the help. I could
Mhm.
not do it. How many times between the three of us did we probably try to do it ourselves?
Mhm.
And so thank goodness, like, that there are places that continue to take us.
Mhm.
I've said this before. Thank God they didn't tell me no the sixth time.
Absolutely.
The seventh time,
Absolutely.
because one of our other coworkers, the director at Denham always likes
Mhm.
to joke about when they'd see my name.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Oh God,
Yeah.
Oh, I can just
But-
imagine
but
what they
it's just, but
what
like,
they
thank
said
God,
about
at
me.
no point did
Mhm.
anybody say no.
We're
Yeah.
not taking.
I
Yeah.
shook my head a couple of times. And was
Yeah.
like, oh my God.
And
Yeah,
it's
I'll
like,
take him.
because
Yeah.
we
Here we
need
go
that
again.
help, and I think that's
Yeah.
why we do this podcast. Is like,
Mhm.
it's out there, it's available.
Well, I think
there's
it
people-
reaches, those that don't know how to find help.
Mhm.
Where do I get the help? Who do I call? What steps do I need to take to get there? And we're out there. We should probably tell them, when we end this, a number they can call if they
Yeah.
do need help. But
Yeah, it's just reaching out, and saying, "Hey, I
that's
don't
the
really,
hardest thing to
It
do
is.
yeah, I don't
sometimes.
really know what to do, but I need some direction." And
And
we
if you
have
reach
people in
out,
place for that.
and
Mm.
we'll tell you, yeah, just
Tell you
come, just
exactly what to
be here
do.
and do this, and
Yeah.
we got you. And it's like when you're in a complete shit show
Mhm.
of a life in person like I was, that's what I needed. It's
Mhm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, be here at this time. They'll
Right.
even say bring this many clothes. If you don't have any clothes, we'll figure. We'll
Mhm.
Right.
just get here.
You have
You know?
donations.
Yeah, yeah,
If you don't have clothes,
yeah.
we are able to do
We'll get.
that.
You
Yeah.
need soap. You need because. Oh no.
Destroying the
I'm
set,
sorry,
man. I
man.
can't take you anywhere.
I just get so excited.
So excited talking about treatment. Yes. But
But that's
you say that, and it's pretty cool. Though it is excitement, because it's something you have a passion for.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we have a passion for helping people, and I know that Woodlake itself has the passion for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And how many people can we help? And how many people can we reach? How many people aren't aware of somewhere they can go to get the help?
yeah.
And you know, a few episodes back, we were just talking about everything that we cover now.
Mm-hmm.
Like no matter what your bottom is, no matter what your ailment is, mental health, addiction, whatever the case, we have various ways of being able to treat that now.
Mm-hmm.
You know that we didn't have probably when you started going to treatment
No,
back in
definitely.
the
Oh,
day.
wow.
Probably your first treat, like there weren't that many options.
No, and there's
Right?
so many
And
options
so there's
now.
so many options. One, there's so many options available for treatment, not just Woodlake, but others, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the options while in treatment to receive care has
Mm-hmm.
grown,
Yeah.
Well, I think more than anything, not that we didn't work with clients before,
Mm.
but now we just have so many resources where, you know, um, we can work with them. If you can only come to treatment for 2 weeks because you have kids or
Mhm.
you're, a single parent or something like that, it's like we can work those options out where you can still get the treatment but still be able to be with your family. There's
Yeah.
just so many options that we didn't have before that are available. And I don't think a lot of people know about it. A lot of people think, well, if I go to treatment, I have to be there for, a set amount of days. And,
Mhm.
and that's really not the case.
Right.
Yeah.
You can do inpatient, you can do outpatient, uh, you can do individual sessions. Like there's so many options.
Mhm.
And it's just a beautiful thing. So you can't say I can't get help,
Yeah.
Right.
or like the help's not there. The help's there. It's
Mhm.
just coming to us and us trying to figure out what option fits you best or what works for you.
Yeah,
You
and I
don't know
think
what I've been through.
Yeah, well,
well, and as
I might.
as we're closing, I think what I heard you say, Lauren, is like if you feel like you need help, just reach out.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Like, and we'll figure it out. Like, don't let
Yeah.
these preconceived or whatever incorrect
Ideas of it,
thoughts
yeah.
might be. If you
You're
need help, reach out.
probably, and I'll use this word, delusional barriers,
Mhm.
right? There, it's that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's only a barrier that you're putting in front of yourself. The help is there. You can call us at 225-924-1910. If you need some help, you're not unsure what to do, and we'll guide you in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too, like, if you guys are like familiar with us, like watching this show, if you want to reach out to us directly, like, just ask the person
Yeah.
over the phone. They'll forward you to us. We can talk to you and get the help that you need.
Yeah. I think it is, asking for help, that's the tough part, man.
Mhm.
But you said the number, it's what, 225
924
924 1910, right?
1910. Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah,
Man.
you did well.
Memorized
You couldn't
it.
remember
Yeah.
my name,
No,
but
Jeff,
you remember that number pretty
Monroe.
quick. Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, sorry, Lauren. No, if you are though, struggling, if you need some help, if you feel like you've hit rock bottom, reach out. Whether it be through phone, however, please, there's plenty of resources. And Lauren, thank
Yeah,
you.
Thanks for coming,
guys.
Lauren.
Jeff.
We enjoyed it.
Monroe.
Mm-hmm.
Monroe.
Monroe.
Thank you, man. As always, it's a pleasure. I enjoy doing this. And guys, like, follow, share, subscribe. We do appreciate everybody that watches and tunes in. And thank you all for joining us on another episode of Beyond the Struggle.
Yes, thank you.